Hello, and welcome back. If this isn't the final episode, I will be really surprised. And just like I said last time, we're basically right where we stopped last time, I think. So let's just continue with this episode here, where we got Ren, now 17, in Calvard, a schoolgirl there, to accomplish something. We don't know exactly what, but it's important probably. She had a talk with some asshole and with Tita. And now it's another day. The morning dawned, yet another day of school, however, just as she left her classroom in the main building at the start of lunch and went to descend to the staircase, she felt someone suddenly drawn near from behind her. Reflexively, she dodged out of the way. A female student then entered her field of vision. She had lost her balance, her expression a mix of fear and surprise. She passed through the spot Ren had been moments before, but her momentum showed no sign of fading. If someone didn't stop her, she was going to start tumbling down the stairs. Ren was quick to grab her and pull her close. She supported the girl's weight with one arm, with all the grace of someone taking part in a ballroom dance, saving her from falling. Kia? Several students happened to witness the event unfold and could not help but elicit gasps of admiration. Noticing that the girl's eyes were still unfocused, Ren gently addressed her. Are you alright? You aren't hurt, are you? Finally realizing the situation she was in, the girl, whose face had become quite red, quickly straightened her posture in a fluster. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm starting way early, so that maybe we can finish this, and then I can still think about whether or not I want to do a longer stream. But who knows, maybe this will be super long. Yes, I'm okay. You're in Bright from the next class over, aren't you? Thank you so much for helping me. You're very welcome. But I would have to caution you from losing your composure like that right next to a staircase. Do you have some really urgent business to take care of? The girl first frowned in response, then paused to think, then answered. Nothing I can think of. It's weird, but even though it was probably my imagination, it felt like someone had pushed me from behind. Obviously, no one here would do that, so I must have just bumped into someone by accident. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. She thanked her rescuer again before disappearing into the distance. The situation she had deemed her imagination, however, lingered in Ren's mind. If I hadn't sensed something was amiss, both of us would have fallen down the stairs. We could have been badly hurt. Was it really just a coincidence, or was it a deliberate action by someone who wants to hurt me? If it was the latter... She didn't have anything to support this theory, but with it came a familiar sensation. Okay, the first time I thought maybe the game was just bugging out or I was seeing things. But just now again, the game started typing something and then deleted it. I wonder if that's an intentional setup for something. Once again, fate is being altered. Or it's just a weird glitch, I don't know. The feeling of malicious stares focusing on her from the shadows. Geez, the bullies. It took surprisingly little time for her suspicions to gain evidence. After finishing gym class the next day, Ren made for the classroom and began preparing for her next lesson. As she did, she immediately noticed something was amiss. All of her textbooks had been glued shut with an excessive amount of adhesive. Okay, well that's too direct. Try as she did to open them, it was a lost cause to get to even a single page. It was an obvious attempt to harass her. The culprits behind the act were equally obvious. Not far from where Ren was sitting, Ronald Griffith and his lackeys, whom she so memorably turned away 2 days prior, were snickering to themselves. Wow. Their eyes mockingly focused on Ren all the while. Great characters. They're not even interested in hiding what they're like anymore. I'm sure at this point they want me to know who did it to intimidate me. You're not intimidating Ren, you idiots. This latest development also confirmed in her mind that they were responsible for trying to push her down the stairs the day before. What a pitiful sight they were. Because she refused to join their group, her existence was, in their eyes, now nothing more than a hindrance to Ronald's campaign for student council president. They would stop at nothing to either break her spirit and force her to join or shame her into lowering her popularity among the student body. Again. It didn't matter that Ren had no interest in taking part in the election. After further inspecting the state of her textbooks, Ren's expression grew difficult to read. I think I can make them usable again, but not in what little time I have left before class. The bell soon chimed to signal the start of her lesson. Ren left her textbooks out on top of her desk, making no effort to open them throughout. Her instructor was, of course, less than pleased about this perceived slight against them, picking her to answer a question as an attempt to chide her poor behavior, but she aced the answer anyway. "Miss Bright, please read the next paragraph aloud for us." Ronald and his friend let out a series of pleased giggles at this, their minds delighting at the thought of a flustered Ren being told off and humiliated in front of the entire class. But what transpired is in reality played out very differently from their fantasies. Without missing a beat, Ren did exactly as she was told, reciting the selected paragraph she had been asked to read word for word, and all while her textbook remained closed. "Did you memorize this entire book?" Even the instructor could not hide their surprise. But of course, as a student of Aramis Academy, I would never dare to compromise in preparing for my lessons. Ren responded with such grace that she, of course, drew in more sighs and coos of admiration from both her instructor and peers alike. I have this image of some old man professor, blushing like he's a fanboy now too. Oh my god, she's so amazing, yeah. It was only Ronald and his posse who groaned with sullen expressions. The next incident came on Ren's way to school the next morning. She entered the school gates with a horde of other students and was just about to step into the building when she noticed a foul smell coming from above her. She looked upward, noticing a portion of the fencing surrounding the building's rooftop was falling directly above her. Other students noticed at the same time, letting out screams of horror and worries they could do nothing about it. I could get out of the way easily if I wanted, but the fencing was over 2 arcs in length. She could escape unharmed, but the other students around her would likely not. That was a risk she was unwilling to take. What the hell? That time it was so much, of that text thing. Grasping the battle ornament hidden in her bag, she cried out, "Airstrike!" A sphere of wind formed in response to her incantation, flying upward at high speeds. She carefully controlled its power so that instead of sending the fence flying, it simply cancelled out its momentum instead, allowing her to hop and catch it with ease. This was no accident. The smell makes it obvious. It was the distinct scent of a liquid extracted from a certain plant monster. One of its proffered properties was to imitate the natural corrosion of metal, resulting in its application in certain solvents. This made the fence falling a deliberate action the perpetrator had been trying to disguise as an accident, and with Ren having been the target of several malicious acts already, the culprit was cleared. Again, she could feel the presence of those familiar hateful stares pouring into her from the shadows. But again, as well, they were not the only ones with eyes on her. Wow, that was awesome. Did you see that? Is there anything she can't do? Ren's quiet meditation was disrupted by a multitude of cheers and applause from all around her. As if she were a performer just about to leave the stage, she gave an elegant bow in response. So much for staying undercover, huh? This would not be the last time she endured harassment from Ronald's group, but each and every time they thought they bested her, she would handle herself with exemplary skill, their efforts only serving to make her more popular. The state of affairs continued for several more days before seemingly out of patience. Ronald summoned Ren behind the school building after lessons were over for the day. Is he gonna confess? He stood oppressively before her, his lackeys behind him, with a composure he attempted to feign before, now replaced by plain vile anger. That fucking loser. Let me give it to you straight, Ren Bright. You are an eyesore. Even that gentlemanly air he impersonated before was gone. Really? Well, that's not a very polite thing to say to a classmate. Don't try to act cute and innocent. I've put too much damn time and mirror into building my position up at this academy. But who's always the center of attention instead? Well, whose fault is that? It's you. It's always you. It's like you deliberately tried to sabotage my chances of success, and that's the last thing I can afford right now. The more livid Ronald became, the more unruffled Ren was in turn. You're only sabotaging yourself by setting me up to succeed over and over again. You are aware of that, aren't you? Had she not been forced to defend herself against him over and over again, she would not have received nearly as much attention. This being pointed out caused Ronald to return an audible test of frustration. Who cares about how it happens? The point is, this has gone long enough, so I'm going to have to ask you to step off the stage for a while. What do you mean? Ronald seemed to present some of his initial cool from when they first talked as he answered. Oh, I mean something very simple. You just won't come to school until the day the election is over. Hey, Mick. There was a little too much left to read last time, so it's another episode. And if I refuse? To this, he raised a hand, and in response, his lackey stepped forward to surround her. Oh no! Useless goons against level fucking 700 Ren! The boys were unusually well built for their age, showing off their hulking forms in hopes of intimidating her. Oh no. Refusing is not an option, I'm afraid. If you aren't going to oblige me willingly, we will just have to make it so you can't come to school for a while. I guess he feels like he could get away with it because of his political father positioning stuff. Very good sentence. His lackeys cracked their knuckles dramatically to clarify their leader's intent. Well, that's no good. I think we both know that would constitute a grave violation of the school rules. Not like any of what he's done before wouldn't. Something about her inflection caused him to mistake her commentary as showing a hint of fear, further fueling their desire to dominate the situation. Oh, what fools. No one's watching a place like this, and even if someone did happen to see my father as a politician, he can make it go away. If they don't willingly choose to ignore what they saw, in deference to my position, that is. Everyone at this academy seems to already know their place, you see. Everyone except you. His smile then was so unpleasant that a sigh escaped him. Just kill him right now. If nobody's watching anyway, then you can kill all of them and nobody would ever know. No, I think you're the one who doesn't know your place. I don't want to be rough with him after what Tito said. But he needs to be taught a good hard lesson. Ronald continued on, oblivious to what was running through his apparent victim's mind. Now do as I say. His lackeys drew closer, ready to seize her. I'll keep it mild, but I still want this to hurt for them. Just enough to set them on the right track. I don't think Estelle or Joshua would object to that. Estelle certainly wouldn't. But just as she was about to act, is it the girl that she saved coming to her rescue? Stop this at once! A girl's shout could be heard from the direction of the school building. She was, of course, not shouting at Ren. And who are you? Ronald was visibly irritated. Although the girl appeared to be visibly nervous, she continued to stand her ground. Hey, wait. I feel like I might recognize that form. That face. I didn't mean to listen in, but I couldn't help but overhear what was happening here. You can't go through with this. What you're doing is wrong. I don't? Okay. I thought it looked a bit like Alfin. Princess Alfin. But older. But no, okay. Clearly she couldn't have been the girl that Ren saved earlier, because I feel like Ren definitely would have recognized her. But I thought maybe she just stepped in randomly, which also would have been weird. But she's got some similarities. Maybe. Anyway. You can't go through with this. What you're doing is wrong. The girl stepped forward till she was directly in front of Ren to protect her from her schoolyard bullies. As she did so, the light revealed sleek, dazzling blonde hair that shimmered much like the sunshine above. Ren recognized her to be a first-year student who lived in the dormitory next to her own. They weren't close to one another. At most, they only exchanged polite greetings with one another as they passed each other in the hall. She always seemed like a quiet, polite young woman with a good upbringing. However, not the type whose eyes would glow with resolve as she put her well-being on the line for someone else's. Ren was surprised by this, as was Ronald, though he was less than impressed. He never fathomed that another student would dare to resist him. One thing he did sense was that her resistance was little more than a brave front. With excitement at the thought of stripping that front bare, he grew a sadistic smile and addressed her. "This piece of shit. Chat, kill that guy. Mods, shoot that guy." "Is it now? Well, how fortunate for me that I have you to show me the error of my ways. Ren can wait. You're a first year, I assume? I'm going to need... What the fuck? Is that normal, by the way? That has happened a bunch of times that the text was like doing things, and I'm wondering if that's like an intentional weird style thing or if it's a glitch. Because the text doesn't seem to change. Okay. It's just kind of strange. I'm going to need to give you a lesson and just how right and wrong works in our society. I think that "and" is supposed to be an "in." Upon his signal, his lackeys shifted to surround their new target over Ren. Scumbags! She began to tremble as danger closed in on her, but still she did not move. "Don't you dare!" "Oh, don't you dare!" This time it was Ren who spoke up. "I'll give you what you want, so don't you dare touch her." "But..." "Haha, you sure about that?" She wasn't planning on that response, but Ronald was more than happy to have his win in any form. "Just kill them, Ren. Don't give them anything. They have just given you a better reason to kill them. Justified not just self, but other defense." "I'll take away from school for..." "I'd stay away from school for a while. That's what you want, right?" "But then you..." "The experience of studying abroad has been rather tiring for me, so maybe I do need some rest." Ren's voice was gentle in an attempt to assuage the kind girl's concerns. Ronald, meanwhile, made no attempt to hide the joy he felt at victory, laughing heartily with all the glee of a spoiled child. "Good, now everyone knows their place here. I see no reason to harm either of you now that I've got what I want. Consider yourselves lucky now that I've decided to let you go." "Can somebody just fucking kill this guy?" Ronald turned away and made it to leave, his lackeys following suit. "Good day to you then. When we next meet, the school will be all mine." And then he was gone. That's like the most 2-bit villain character maybe in the series in a long time. With only the girls left behind the school building, the younger of the two looked up at her senior, concern welling in her expression. "I really am alright. I really am alright. You're very kind to me." Ren's smile was one of genuine kindness. From then on, Ren did indeed stop coming to school, citing illness as an official reason behind her absence. Jeez, that's dumb. The students then gathered in the Academy's auditorium several days later for the long-awaited student council election. Aramis Academy as a whole placed great importance on the autonomy of its students, and as such the student council exercised an unusual amount of power. Hooray! It also weighed upon them a massive amount of responsibility, such as being the sole planner for the Academy's festival, a symbol and celebration of spring in the capital. This, however, also led to the position being a major status symbol even long after graduation. All of this was why a large number of students put their names forward to become the student council president every year. Maybe Ren still gets elected, despite not even being there. That would be a nice win over that dumb douchebag. That's just how outmatched he was, winning while AFK. It's like Luigi winning at Mario Party without doing anything. But better. Yet this year, a great majority of the most promising candidates dropped out under mysterious circumstances, leaving only Ronald and others associated with him on the ballot. Wow. I couldn't exactly boast about winning by default. Ronald and his supporters sat in the rest area chuckling among themselves at the whole affair. Perhaps his name wasn't the only one on the ballot, but none of the others had done any certifiable campaigning, meaning his election was positively assured. Eventually, the time came for him to give a speech. It was a compelling one. He played the part of a respectable young gentleman as he delivered it, speaking with that same silver tongue he inherited well from his father. There were some moments where he failed to hide his arrogance, but as no one else had prepared a speech to give, this was not the blow to his campaign it otherwise would have been. Now if you could turn your eyes to the screen. The screen he spoke of was at the back of the auditorium. Did Ren hacked into that to showcase some shit, so he's defamed and lost now. Calling it. Super hacker Ren is back, baby. This was a rather notable feature to have in a school building, to have anywhere, and was installed several years prior for use in lectures and to display recreational films. Other nations had yet to indulge in such luxuries, showing just how far ahead Calvert was in its technology. Up until then, students had used it to display photographs during their speeches, but Ronald intended to take it another step further. He wanted to share a promotional video, and not a simple makeshift self-produced one that might ordinarily be presented by an amateur, but rather a professional work he paid a considerable amount of money for. Nepo baby piece of shit. Its quality was genuinely impressive. If only anybody could see it. His victory was written in stone, but this, he knew, would cement it that much more. Convinced this would serve as the perfect beginning to his ascension to the top of the social hierarchy, he started the video. The musical number it played was rousing, fitting. What followed then was Ronald appearing on screen. So, how much mirror do you want for supporting me? I can make it worth your while. What? The video playing before them was not the one intended. Uh-oh! That's pretty good. Rather than an inspiration show of what he could bring to the student body, probably inspirational, it was a recording of him buying off one of his opponents just days before. As hushed whispers of confusion spread through the auditorium, the next clip played. If you know what's good for you, you'd withdraw your candidacy right now, or the only thing you'll be president of is a hospital bed. Next was an equally unexpected scene of Ronald intimidating another candidate into withdrawing from the race. As it continued, Ronald realized what was going on. Someone out there had replaced his carefully prepared video with another. He really is smart to realize that so quickly. The initially hesitant whispers exploded into loud enough murmurs that he had to raise his voice over them in his attempt to quell the situation. This is all for forgery. Someone is attempting to frame me. But just at that moment, as if waiting for his cries of denial, a girl's voice resounded from the auditorium's entrance. I'm afraid it's all entirely genuine. Her voice rang out with wonderful clarity, charming all who heard it. She ran her hand through her violet hair and flipped it back as she talked and walked slowly toward the stage. Checkmate, bitch. Bribing potential threats, blackmailing, threatening, even executing violence against others, and many other cases of bullying besides. You are guilty on every single count, Ronald Griffith. Before anyone could fully understand what was happening, this student was on the stage and staring Ronald down. All eyes were fixed upon this elegant figure. She's definitely not gonna be under the radar anymore, ever. All eyes were fixed upon this elegant figure. Indeed, without any effort at all, she had the air of a protagonist from some epic tale making her long-awaited appearance. Damn it, Ren Bright, must you insist on getting in my way at every turn? He growled through a sheet of sheer anger. In contrast, the recently absent Ren responded with brilliant composure. You are the one getting in the way of the fair running of this important election. Your countless crimes have made a mockery of the whole process. Ren then turned from Ronald to the rest of the student body as she continued to list his crimes alongside the still-running video. Some elicited frowns, others sympathy, others complete silence, but by the time she was finished, all were united in a single overpowering emotion. Anger. It brings me no joy to say this about a fellow student, but I'm afraid it must be said. Ronald Griffith, you do not deserve to even attend this prestigious academy, much less be the president of its student council. Similar censure from other students followed in rapid succession. Yeah, she's right. Stop ruining our academy. You've gone too far. Ren's accusation wasn't the only reason for their anger. The students of RMS had long loathed Ronald's repressive behavior. They only hadn't spoken out before because they were afraid of his father's power. Now that they realized he could be stopped, their anger had reached an explosive boiling point. Ronald suddenly found himself at the center of a torrent of abuse. He looked to his lackeys for support, but even they refused to meet his gaze. You suck, dude. It then dawned on him just how fragile all he thought he built was. Rage gave way to an instant deep despair, and casting a glare of pure hatred towards Ren, Ronald hurriedly sprinted out of the auditorium, a very graceful exit. Only when he was completely out of sight did the air erupt with cheers of joy. Yippee! In the end, addressing the aftermath of the election took long enough that by the time she had left for the gates, it was already evening. Yet even with how late it was, instead of walking her usual route home, she stepped off the path to enter an entirely unoccupied park. How does this work? No one is going to interrupt us here, so how about you come out? In response to her words, Ronald emerged before her for the first time since he ran away earlier in the day, and with 10 or so companions in tow. These men weren't his usual lackeys, but instead vicious figures with dark expressions and gaudy clothing. They were clearly not students of the academy. Well, they can't be too strong, because otherwise they would probably have heard of Ren at some point in some way. You know, being a member of the society at some point and all that. Friggin' nobodies, who do they think they are? More than likely, they belonged to some local gang. You don't keep very good company. You don't keep very good company outside of school, do you? With how they're dressed up, I assume that you must be off to a party or something? I'm going to wipe that smug smirk right off that face for good, Renbright. My dazzling future in politics was guaranteed, but now you've gone and ruined everything. What am I supposed to say to my father now? Say oopsies. That's your problem, not mine. Or are you so small a man that you can't own up to the consequences of your own mistakes? Not a second passed between his outburst and the manner in which she snapped back, causing his temper to grow twice as violent. That's it. I don't care what it takes. You are going to pay for thinking you could cross me and get away with it. Have at her. There won't be any consequences for going too far. My father will see to that. The men sprung into motion upon Ronald's signal, but what followed made them doubt their eyes. Where did she hide that scythe? Well, it's magic. She can summon it. Ronald could not understand what just unfolded before him. His eyes relayed the information well enough, but his mind rejected it completely. The second after he ordered his new lackeys to attack, Ren had produced a monstrously sized black and gold scythe from thin air. This in itself was beyond comprehension, but it wasn't the last thing to be so. Swing. The scene was like a cat toying with a powerless cornered mouse, except in this shocking case Ren was the cat, and his men were the mice. They surrounded her at first, and yet all it took was a single swing of her conjured weapon to cause most of them to collapse on the ground. In less than 10 seconds, their confidence had crumbled with their bodies. The mice made to scurry as fast as they could, but the cat gleefully gave chase. That's the Ren we know. There were even moments where she let a few think they had gotten away, only for her to immediately close the gap between them. It was only after she was bored that she would knock them unconscious, like the rest. Then she would seek delight in her next hunt. Like heavy stacks of potatoes, the men fell one by one, until only Ren and Ronald were left. Fuck him up. This can't be happening. The young man was still struggling to come to terms with what he just witnessed as Ren stretched her limbs like a bored child still gearing up to play. Amateurs, every last one of them. I thought I could at least have a little fun. Oh, but don't you worry, I didn't actually slaughter them. Not yet. She turned her gaze from the spectacle of her own creation to Ronald. So cool! She gets my vote. Would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment, perhaps, Ronald? Ronald twitched in fear at the mention of his name. In this moment, she was now nothing more than a beast in human skin. But a cool beast. Stay away from me. My father's in the parliament, you know. Try anything on me and you'll regret it. Sure. Her response was an expression of pure pity before tossing what appeared to be a magazine at his feet. Oh, did the father also get exposed? Did you fuck him up too? It's one of today's tabloids. You might find its contents relevant. What? At first he was baffled by the shift, but the second he peeked at the cover, his face went pale. Representative Griffith suspected of bribery and connections to organized crime, read the headline in giant punchy lettering. Ren, you goddess. You mastermind. There's a whole special feature on your dearest daddy, complete with evidence. It mentions that the CID is going to be conducting an investigation as well. So this may be the last day you can say he's in Parliament. My condolences. No. So visceral was his shock that at the news that the simple word was all he could muster. Even then, Ren wasn't finished. Damn, Ren's the best. So now that he's been removed from the equation, I'll ask again. Would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment? She edged closer and closer, scythe in hand, and a sadistic smile lacing her lips. Ronald tried to retreat in fear before tripping over a rock and falling hopelessly on his backside. All he could do was watch her as though she were to the Grim Reaper, tears and snot streaming down his face. Be a doll and play with me, then you'll understand why they used to call me the Angel of Slaughter. She raised her scythe above her head and was ready to swing it downward before realizing what she said. Oops, a grown woman shouldn't play with dolls, though, would she? And here I thought I could better control my childish glee. She covered her mouth with her free hand, blushing with feminine modesty at the slip-up. None of this was behavior befitting the proper lady she wanted to reflect, but it is behavior befitting of the best fucking character right now. Damn, I want her as the protagonist. I want this as the next game. I want her as the protagonist of the next game, like that. After composing herself, she turned her attention back to her prey, only to see he was already unconscious. Finished? As she left the park, a calm young man called out to her. I certainly am. Ren met eyes with a brown-skinned young man leaning covertly against one of the trees. I see. It was safe to assume he had witnessed the entire affair unfold. Ah. Do I know you? He looks familiar, but not. I don't think he looks familiar because I've seen him in trailers, but because he looks like a character, like, you know, I don't want to say generic, but the kind of character that shows up in various other shows, I guess, other series, you know, that kind of design. He glanced inside the park for a brief moment before speaking with slight but genuine admiration. You really are something. In what way? In every way, even if I was more struck by the hacking abilities of the famous Kitty than the combat prowess of the infamous Angels of Slaughter. He's in the know. He also looks older than her. I'm assuming he's like an actual adult, but who knows. Still hard to believe you managed to find dirt on this big-wig dad that easily. Ren's response was a matter of fact, showing no sign his praise had gone to her head. Most people just aren't as cautious about cybersecurity as they ought to be, understandable with how new most are to it. Of course, it isn't nearly as easy as this was when you're dealing with leading corporations and politicians at the top of the food chain. You made it sound like you've tried before. Maybe I have. Ren's smile was both cryptic and darling. I've been more impressed with you. I've been more impressed with you. You were quick to write a piece that's scathing, while also finding me exactly the proof I needed. Oh, collaborators. I'm glad Grace introduced us. Good old Grace. Just doing my job. The man's name was Dingo. That makes him less cool now. But I'll take it. And he was a professional reporter for a tabloid. He was extremely capable at his job, very well connected, and held a reputation for never shying away from danger. After being introduced to one another by Grace Lynn, he and Wren made a deal with one another just a few days prior. The terms were simple. Calm down, text. Dingo would provide Wren with proof of Ronald's misdemeanors, and Wren would use her hacking abilities to provide evidence of his father's crimes. Both were now reaping the rewards of the other's success. Reaping, because she's got the scythe and stuff. I'm going to drink some water. Who's saying this? Though I'll admit that I did get some help from a friend. He was none too pleased about being asked to look into a scummy politician's equally scummy... Wait, no, it doesn't. Into a scummy politician's equally scummy son, but he pulled through. Oh, you just have all kinds of connections, don't you? She did sense someone other than Dingo was acting on her behalf while she was off school, but she wasn't sure who that someone was. This curious sensation regarding their identity remained as she continued the conversation. You know, I'm surprised you didn't meet with any resistance in running that story. That just goes to show how big of a fan the government was of Griffith. They left him alone because he didn't actively oppose the current president's party. But from the CID's perspective, this chance to take him down was about as good as it was going to get. That does sound like something Miss Taito Master over there would do. Angelica? I can't say I like the feeling of being used by her, but oh well. Maybe Dingo said that. Dingo then made a curious observation. I have to wonder why you went to such lengths to get rid of a small fry like him. He really bother you that much? Wren glanced briefly at Ronald, still collapsed on the ground of the park, before shrugging her shoulders dismissively. Not in the least. I didn't intend for this to go as far as it did either. I only wanted to reteach him enough of a lesson so he'd leave me alone, but... It was then that the younger student who tried to save her came to mind. I think the students deserve a much better student council president than him. She then let out a titter that was most refined. As Wren expected, the allegations led Ronald's father to resign from Parliament, while he resigned from Aramis Academy. The group of students who exerted power over the student body with his backing vanished overnight as a result, bidding peace to return to the grounds for the first time in too long. One thing, however, came about from this that Wren had not expected in the least. Here are all the documents relating... Oh wait, that's probably her as student council president, right? Here are the documents relating to the next month's budget. The student council's new president accepted the documents from the blonde-haired first year in charge of general affairs, perusing them straight away. After Ronald dashed from the auditorium on the day of the election, most of those in his group who put down their name dropped out in a timely fashion. Voting still took place even then, but once all was said and done, nearly 70% of the votes cast were disqualified. Damn, that's a lot. This was because they were all in favor of someone who never had put her name on the ballot, Wren Bright. Aramis Academy was known for how little its staff interfered with the many liberties it gave its students, but this time the staff was clearly concerned that dissatisfaction with Ronald was going to present dire problems in the future. The teachers then chose to directly negotiate with Wren, and in the face of such fervent demand, she reluctantly accepted the position of student council president. She just like Ash for real. None of her duties posed a challenge to her, but by accepting it, she had completely and utterly failed her initial goal of avoiding attention. I wonder if this is how the Thor's Branch campus first student council president felt when he was elected. Even I couldn't believe it was it when Tita told me. Even she references that. Alright, it is what it is, I suppose. I'll just have to make use of this as best I can. Sunlight beamed into the student council room. The blonde-haired girl and two of her friends struggled with a new workload they were adjusting to. As Ren sat there, ears open and random talk and the occasional grumble, a thought crossed her mind. She had no end of real-world worries, the problems arising from rapid technological development, the society's next move, the ominous winds of change blustering over Calvert. But despite all those, she wanted to enjoy her simple time here while she could. What say we get this work done so we can celebrate with a tea party, The arrival of spring was now a distant memory, even if summer had yet to come. There was nothing particularly spectacular about this time, it was just another ordinary, beautifully bright afternoon. Bright! Non-conventional student to the end. Well, that was nice. I really enjoyed the payoff on the revenge plot, I guess. That was good. And now we got another Hot Springs Paradise. It's also going to be Calvert forward-looking. January, year 1208 of the Septian calendar. Between two great mountains at the tip of a Calvardian basin sits Long Line. Hey, we've heard that term. The town is known for two things, being the eastern entrance to the Republic and its exceptional hot springs. Through these enticing factors does it continue to welcome tourists hailing from both home and abroad. Yet today it served guests quite unlike its many unseasoned visitors. These had come from another renowned hot springs paradise situated in the northern reaches of Argonia. Oh, you've had a mom and sister. And I guess, father and son too. The depth of flavor in the food here is just exquisite. Agreed, the Phoenix Wings food is certainly nothing to sneeze at. But I have my doubts that a chef could replicate dishes with this unique in taste. The Bishan Inn's reputation continues to precede itself. Baron Teo and Lady Lucia Schwarzer were sampling the inn's culinary delights, spirits high and stomachs spinning fast. Their daughter Eliza sat next to them, her spirit a bit lower by comparison as her brow was furrowed with concern. Now I'm a little sad that I picked this second, because now, we're not ending with the best character Ren rather than with the worst character Ren. He's not the worst, but Ren is way cooler. No, I had the choice of the order. I could have picked this first and then the student thing. I'm sure its luxuries come with just an equally luxurious price tag, and there's 4 of us, so even 2 nights must have cost a small fortune. Upon realizing what she said, she shook her head. Oh, I guess that was illegal. I didn't mean to dampen the mood. I know we have the money, but all my budgeting as student council president has made the terrible habit of me seeing the numbers and everything. Her older brother Reen couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Then the budget buster in you will like how much we saved, because we're not here as paying customers. We were invited by the owners personally. They said they want to get to know us since we run similar establishments. So here we are, and we'll be inviting them to Emir sooner than later, of course. But only if the way they poison us doesn't kill us, because they want to take over our institution. Right, Dad? Oh, absolutely. Add this to the list of boons coming from our countries finally coming to terms with one another. The Republic is reveling... Dude, the text. The Republic is reveling in unheard of levels of prosperity, and the relations between our people are more active and stiff than ever. I, for one, welcome any opportunity to further foster friendship. Further foster friendship. The Baron took another healthy sip of his baijiu before continuing. Friendship over fighting, I say. Such a shame that the world tends to overcomplicate that simple concept. Seeing her husband's glass was almost empty, Lucia filled it to the brim while adding her own thoughts. That's all the more reason why we need to make the most of this invitation and enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Their children nodded in agreement. Who's saying that? And even that aside, there's no reason to spoil a family vacation when we so rarely have the time to take them. Oh, I read about some unusual sweet dishes worth trying. Wait, no, but somebody else is saying. Worth trying here? Would you like to share some with me, Ring? In a bit. I'm thinking of taking another soak in the hot springs, so I might be in the mood for something sweet after. The food here's delicious, but as far as I'm concerned, the hot springs are the real star of the show. Haha, that's my boy. Haha, that's my boy right there. The ruling lord of the hot springs paradise would never let a good discussion about them pass him by. He was as fond of their quality and soothing effects as Reen. Enthusiasm and undeniably apparent from the warmth of his tone to the width of his smile. Their medical springs happen to be a favorite of mine. I can't help but be fascinated by them time and time again. I can't believe it. I've always known about them. I don't know who's ever saying anything in this. Fuck. But here's the first place I've been able to feel the way they warm you right to your core. Think we could make one available at the Phoenix Winds? It'd be worth a try, but that comes with its own obstacles. No, I can't. Chat will never forgive me. For as many problems as Theo expressed in practical terms, Reen had just as many proposed solutions. The conversation grew more involved by the minute, leaving the ladies of the house to pleasedly bask in their glow and continue enjoying the meal before them. All four felt the same, that it had been too long since they could enjoy each other's company, but the wait had been well worth it. And then they dined. That night, after indulging in his post-dinner soak in the springs and telling his family he was going for a walk, Reen departed the inn. All right, let's do this. He took it in a deep breath, the crisp air, night air of Long Lai filling his lungs. Then he killed the mayor and took over the town. The hot springs were an excellent bonus to his trip, to be sure, but it was not the real reason he agreed to visit. He had come in search of Yun Ka-Fai, the famed sword hermit. Master Ka-Fai was the founder of the 8 Leaves One Blade school, of which Reen was a practitioner, and though now over 70 years old, he was still regarded as one of the strongest combatants on the continent. They had not met since before Reen's enrollment at TLOH. Many a letter was exchanged during the 4 years that followed, but even they had stopped after Reen earned the right to call himself a Divine Blade over a year ago. There was so very much he wished to discuss with his master. What he had learned in his 4 years of training, what had transpired since becoming a Divine Blade, the true meaning behind being the final blade to master the 8 Leaves. There's plenty I'd like to ask that have nothing to do with swordsmanship too. Although these questions, all impossible to answer without first knowing the whereabouts of a single individual. Even a senior practitioner like Cassius Bright claimed ignorance, having received not a single update from their old master. He had always been an elusive but traceable sort, but wherever he was now, he was next to impossible to track. That wasn't a word of a blade master being sighted in Long Lai reached Reen's ears. The man had a fondness for the town's specialties, those being the hot springs and its fragrant tea leaves, making the sighting worthy of particular note. He also knew from the letters before they stopped that he intended to journey eastward, making Long Lai one of the more plausible stopping points. The word came to him just as the Schwarzes were invited to stay at the inn during their New Year vacation. Reen's instincts told him the timing was a little too fortunate, but with how vague the lead was, even it would most likely result in him leaving the same as he had arrived. While he had not discussed the rumor being key to his traveling here, his family seemed to sense it was more than a simple pleasure trip for him. I know Dad would have a great time catching up with him, but I don't want to get his hopes up for nothing. These thoughts in mind, Reen made his way through the night streets. Then he activated his master sensors, so he could sense his master. Longlai's architecture was distinctly Eastern, making it a uniquely intriguing sight among most of Calvern's towns and cities. This was not to say it was similar to Crossbell's East Street. With subtle colors paired with dignified beauty, every wall and stone exuded the traditional concepts of wabi-sabi. One look was enough to understand the region was rich with history. This quiet charm would give way to contrastly living evenings. Lively, not living. Where tourists both westward and farther eastward were greeted to stalls dedicated to the hot springs and more, this too had a traditional sort of charm. Reen asked several merchants if they had any information pertaining to the whereabouts of his master, somewhat sheepishly purchasing a number of souvenirs from their stalls to keep himself from being a nuisance. They, he justified, would make excellent gifts for his friends, his co-workers, and his students. Those guys. I can't believe it's almost time for them to graduate. I might be more emotional about theirs than I was for mine. For the first time, Reen would get to experience what it was like for the young birds he had taken under his wing for 2 years to finally leave the nest. So I guess that means Ren was 14 if 3 years have passed, right? Am I getting that right? Now she's 17. So I guess that's the time frame. Yeah. For the first time, Reen would get to experience what it was like for the young birds he had taken under his wing for 2 years to finally leave the nest. Their first year had been eventful, to say the least. What had started as a problem class full of disagreements and more mounting tension had slowly grown into one of compassion and understanding for one another. It was with each new discovery about themselves and every new ordeal the world sought to impose upon them that they grew not only as individuals but as a team. He hoped this period would remain as much a meaningful part of their lives as it would always be for him. The months before the Retributive Tower's appearance held many a trial, making the 10 months that followed in its shadow pass all too quickly. In that time, Reen's students continued to mature, building on everything they accomplished in their first year to prepare for and settle into their desired future. Indeed, whether it was by overcoming their demons or by learning to work with them in a healthier fashion, their path up till now had been well worn, and while they may have had to rest from time to time, he was proud to be a part of why their steps continued to face forward. Proud, but also lonely at the thought of saying goodbye. Because he would never see them again! As their second year drew to a close, lacking in grandiose events, but still rewarding in its own right, it was this mixture of emotions that bore conflict within him most. Can't believe I'll be going through it all over again next year, and even the year after that. Hell of a career I chose to pursue, huh? He didn't know when he stopped walking. Realizing this, he resumed his search, paying respect in mind to the many generations of educators who came before him. No matter where he looked, he could not find Master Kafai in Longland. It was, however, still too early to say whether the trip had been in vain, as he had at least caught an unverified report of the Blade Master being seen in the mountains to the south. Wandering such terrain at night wasn't going to be ideal, but Reen was already firm on spending the next day with his family. Tonight it would have to be. Making a brief stop to the inn to tuck his souvenirs somewhere secure, he then departed for his new destination. And nobody stopped him. I fully expected his sister to be like, "Hey, where are you going?" Even though she totally knew because she knows her brother so well. That kind of thing. The mountain's winding, half-beaten trails would be more treacherous at night, but they were not off-limits as such. The key Reen knew would be to not rely on his sight alone. His senses of hearing and smell, perhaps even touch, were going to be equally vital in the hours ahead. Calling upon his experience and intellect to heighten all 5 senses, he took in his surroundings in full. This really takes me back to training in the mountains. To call the experience training would imply his time being one of simple tutelage between student and master, but it equated to so much more. The danger then was far worse than it was now, with some days requiring him to set foot in highly dangerous territories just to find the day's food to survive. It sounds like the Kunlun Mountains may have been used for a similar exercise a long time ago. Reen was Jesus. Reen was not Jesus, but to some, he might be just as important. Reen was certain to think on the information gained during his search as he continued along the trail. Searching for evidence of human activity in an environment like this was not a difficult task. Humans always leave something indicative of their presence behind that no wild creature could, be it a long dead fire, footprints, or traces of going on the hunt. One need only follow the to lead to their source. Reen did so, advancing with the caution instilled in him by both his old master and hunting enthusiast of a father. They soon led him precisely to clear evidence that a human had been in the area, though the evidence itself was far from what he expected. Remains of a camp? No, this is Jaeger Corps, maybe? It didn't look like it had been left by martial artists in training or roaming hunters. But the most peculiar thing was that there were multiple sites like the first, all evenly spaced from one to the next. It was as though something was being measured. Maybe this is from a group of scholars doing field research, but it seems too large in scale for that. There was nothing more to be found here in advance. Soon after, he found another unusual amount of evidence. It's like someone forced their way through here in a car, or more like hacked open a path wide enough for a car to pass through. All further inspections were suggested that whoever was responsible had given up on this endeavor, leading him to wonder if they somehow found success elsewhere. And if they did, why had they done this at all? The question pestered him. If there was anywhere to clear wide paths, the remote depths of the mountain clearly were not it. But instinct told him he was only a step away from discovering the answer. If I keep following this trail a little further... Trail! At this thought, Reen sensed someone approaching. One person. 2 people. Yes, there were 2. And it was clear they were aware of his presence as well. Only for a fleeting second did he think they might be the ones responsible for the strange trails, but a deadly tension that now thickened the air told him these were no simple scholars. He felt them draw near, the night veiling themselves well, and then he felt them stop. How about you show yourselves? He spoke without placing his hand on his touchy, signifying to those watching that he had no desire to fight. Their silhouettes then silently emerged from the darkest shadows of the mountains. They looked very much like the shinobi of the east he had heard about, their forms clad from top to bottom in black garments and their faces fully obscured. It's ninja time! I see your insight poses a threat after all, Divine. I see your insight poses a threat after all, Divine Blade of the Empire. The contract with our client has yet to begin, but we will make an exception for one among their list of dangerous persons. The silhouettes then charged. They caught him completely off guard, drawing short, straight blades to attack him as they narrowed in. Reen's eyes widened in surprise, but nearly in the same moment he was in a fighting stance, hand over his still sheathed touchy. 5th form, Morning Moon. He perceived the direction of his foe's attacks to evade them, then mounted a counterattack of his own. All it took was that instant to repel their assault and leave them vulnerable. Ordinarily, this would be the time to take the offensive, but all Reen could do was stare at the two with disbelief. "Oh my god, ninjas are so cool," is what he thought. The thought entered my mind as I saw you move, but now that we've crossed blades. He paused, the disbelief in his eyes giving way to a more intent gaze. "Are you practitioners of the Eight-Leaf School?" Another pause, this time from the silhouettes before answering as though they were well aware the question was coming. "No, though we do possess the ties to the school. We are of the Ikaruga." "Oh, that's a very good shmup." "Practitioners of the Black God One Blade School." Black God One Blade, okay. Okay, Mr. Chuni School. The what? Reen was left stunned. How could anybody be more Chuni than him? Did they not see how edgy he was in this game? How could they? The two Ikaruga held their blades horizontally, ready to thrust them forward at any moment. It was as though they wanted to make clear that while they had been caught off guard once, he would not be so fortunate twice. Reen responded by assuming the middle stance with his touchy. But just as the sides were only a beat away from engaging in battle. Whoa. What could only be described as a black cyclone roared from the darkness at such speed that it seemed certain to slice anything it touched. Its appearance caught Reen by surprise more than the initial attacks by the silhouettes. He had not suspected an attack from that angle, that distance, or even at that moment. It looked a bit like the projectiles of the soul... whatever, the level 1 time spell. But it's probably a physical attack. His enemies, on the other hand, did not so much as flinch at the sight. The approaching blade over an arch and a half in length was heading directly for Reen's back. He couldn't possibly dodge it now. Perhaps he should have noticed. Perhaps it was impossible to notice. Whatever the answer, the divine blade of the Empire would soon fall. Oh shit, Reen's dead, you guys. The silhouettes waited in for his final moments to be in, convinced of no other fate in his future. When Reen spun his body in a full circle, applying the intensity built into his touchy from the motion to swing. So he could still avoid it. The blow made was weighted yet precise, shifting the incoming blade to a new direction without mitigating its near overpowering force. This technique was an application of the first form, Helix. There was no greater course in the moment than to use it to redirect the attack without it ever making direct contact. The spinning blade was now significantly off its intended course, but Reen slashed at it again, birthing a shockwave that further shifted its path. The blade went flying hairs to the right of the direction it had come from. A hand was there to deftly catch it midair. You may have only recently taken the title, but you are worthy of being called the Divine Blade all the same. You used the unclouded eye well. From his hand emerged a new figure from the darkness. While he was clad in similar garments to the silhouettes, something about his presence was much more inspired by comparison. His musculature was thoroughly discernible beneath his body-covering fortified suit. His every movement, however slight, reflected a complete lack of hesitation, and the faint light in his eyes, visible through his mask, projected no emotion whatsoever. The man possessed the aura of a true warrior, one projected only by those who have fought more battles than was possible to count. Fall back. He is too formidable a foe for you to handle. The silhouettes slid into the darkness in an instant. Only the new arrival was left to face Reen. I need to know, who are you and why did you attack me? Our contract forbids the disclosure of such information. You will leave this place now, fledgling Divine Blade. The tone was not one of advice, nor one of an order. It was as if the man were stating a fact. his calmness veiling an undertone of malice that told Reen what would happen if he did not do as was told. You know, even though it's a similar situation, the effectiveness of his threats is very different from what Ronald was trying to pull off. I'm afraid I can't do that without an explanation, not when I haven't found what I'm looking for yet. I understand, then. There was no longer anything to discuss. All they could do was battle. I, Kurogane of the Rogetsu school, shall be your opponent. Kurogane stood at attention, the large blade he had thrown before now pointed. I'd have rather settled this with words, but I can't see that's not an option. Reen sighed, taking his own stance in turn. Then Reen Schwarzer, Master of the Eight Leaves One Blade School's 7th form, shall be yours. I guess Reen himself said that. The Divine Blade moved instantly. The bizarre weapon Kurogane wielded was less akin to a sword and more 4 equally sized blades arranged in the shape of a cross, their bases connecting to a single point. That he could direct this large weighted shuriken as though it were a simple child's toy spoke volumes about how strong he was. Still, even it was not infallible, for it was not one to be ideally used in close-range combat. Kurogane appeared to have no other key weapons on hand either, meaning that if Reen could force him to fight where he would be at his most disadvantageous, he would very likely come out of this the victor. This was what he had in mind when choosing to act first. But then he split it into 4 blades and put one in his mouth and one in his butt, and then he was even stronger than Zoro, wielding 4 blades. That's the only way this can go. Check it out. Second form, Gale! Wow. He closed the gap between them, drew his blade, and made a wide swing toward his opponent in the blink of an eye. Kurogane blocked the blow with ease. However, meant nothing in the larger scheme of things. Reen knew well this man's capabilities so long as the gap between them was closed, and he considered the attack a success. But just as he thought he would be able to push onward and overpower his foe by mounting a newly fierce assault. See, he thought he could use a plus on block gap closer, but he didn't realize his opponent had an invincible DP. Kurogane had split his cross-shaped shuriken in half. Well, half only makes it 2, but he'll do it again. The ease at which he did make it clear this was intended by design. He's like Double Crow. He can dual-wield double sabers. There was no hiding his shock. In the West, double sabers were seen as relics from the Dark Ages that were difficult to utilize. Crow was the only person we knew who was competent with one, and only one. The skill it would take to use 2 was almost too difficult to fathom. His surprise created an opening that Kurogane was not going to let pass unexploited. Possessing twin tube-ended blades allowed the shinobi to perform considerably more strikes than Reen, giving him no chance to push back. Steel sparked as their weapons clashed. Kurogane was dominant for some time, but he could do nothing to bolster his advantage. With strike and spark after strike and spark, the advantage was moving back to Reen. This was in part due to him being used to fighting this weapon that defied rationale, but it was also because he had been given the time to find what he was looking for, the perfect range in which to attack. Double sabers were forged with a shorter reach than they appeared to have, something inevitable due to their handle being in the middle. It could have been because he also used them as shuriken, but the length of Kurogane's sabers were even shorter than Crow's, meaning Reen would have to adjust with the longer length of his blade. He measured patiently, staying only just out of Kurogane's reach and evading the onslaught by a hair's breadth each time prior to countering. His spacing is so sick, yo. It was calculated quickly thanks to Kurogane's frequent rapid attacks, meaning all Rin had to do now was wait for the right moment. This moment would come in the form of his opponent showing impatience for this stalled battle, driving him to take an unneeded step forward. Rin evaded the strike expertly, instantly returning it with an upward diagonal slash. The forceful swing of Stachi made contact with the handle of Kurogane's own swung weapon, knocking it clean out of his hand. Rin dashed forward to make use of this veiled opportunity, but after only a flicker of bewilderment, Kurogane moved to deny him. Oh shit. He blocked Rin's attack with a double saber still in his possession, then hurled a hidden kunai with his free hand, jumping backward a significant distance while doing so. Trickster. That's the ninja way. Very good, Divine Blade of 8 Leaves. You may pay to the skills of our princess, but you, without doubt, deserve your reputation. Princess? I want to see the princess. Show me the badass Divine Blade princess, or whatever she is. Princess? Rin's intonation went unanswered as Kurogane took a notably different stance than before. I shall demonstrate my respect for your skill with my finest technique. This put Rin staunchly on guard. Senses heightened, he focused every nerve in his body, fixing his eyes on whatever was to come of Kurogane. It was now gone. Nothing remained where Rin's opponent had just stood. Oh shit, he's gone invisible, you can't hit him anymore, even with an AoE. It's over, man, he's gonna crit you guaranteed, it's just not fair. He hadn't taken his eyes off him, never eased himself for a moment, yet Kurogane was nowhere to be seen. How? Had he moved that quickly? Was it some kind of spatial translocation? But there were no signs to indicate either one. Was it that he never moved at all and was still there, sight unseen? No, that wasn't it either. The double saber Rin had repelled to the ground was also gone. I can still sense him, so he hasn't gone far. Rin suppressed the panic welling up within, owning his senses a second time. That was when another black cyclone swirled toward him from the shadows. He half expected something of this nature, so with little deviation he was able to deflect it as he did the first time. The attack indicated that Kurogane had reassembled his shuriken after recovering its lost half, so he could throw it again. But what if that's just half of the thing he threw just now? It also indicated, together with the slight changes in his surroundings, where he was now positioned. Rin needed a little more time to know where he was for certain, but ahead of making a solid conclusion, the cyclone came at him yet again from a new angle. That was fast. Though he blocked this attack as well as the last before he could fully correct his posture, the next cyclone appeared. The gap between was getting shorter and shorter. He's just projectile spamming, man. Just out of 4, Rin, man. It's just not fair, man. He doesn't deserve your points, man. He's cheesing, man. It's just not fair, man. There was another. The time was shorter, and another, shorter. Soon these assorted smaller cyclones were seemingly growing into a blended grand storm of death with Rin trapped at its center. This doesn't feel like I'm being attacked by a single person. Did he make phantom copies of himself? Kagebunshin? He had no idea from where the next cyclone would form, and by the time he located it, the next one was ready. Even the unclouded eye wasn't going to be enough for him to deduce Kurogane's location. He had been able to repel every blade that met with his so far, but that was growing increasingly difficult. I didn't want to use it, but I'm not sure I have a choice. Well aware that doing so would place him in danger, Rin took his mind off the battle. He gave up blocking and evading attacks, dedicating the bare minimum of his focus to not sustaining lethal blows and focusing his mind inward. He focused on the power that he had long cultivated inside of him. The power he had feared, loathed, and rejected. The power he now relied on, desired, and nearly surrendered himself to. The power he faced with his loved ones at his side, making it a true part of himself. With his mind clear as day, he unleashed his full strength. Unlightened spirit unification! He imbued his Tachi with a great power surging out of him, crying out as he did so, and spinning his body forcibly around to create a bladed circle around him. Oh man, he's just fucking activating V-trigger, stupid combat mechanic man, fucking stupid ass green man. Now he's cheesing man. The energy released by his Tachi repelled all forthcoming shuriken with ease, and with them, Kurogane's phantom copies lurking in the darkness faded to nothing. With that, there you are. He charged toward Kurogane. The man was thoroughly overwhelmed by Rin's sudden counterattack, throwing him completely off balance. There was nothing he could do to repel what would come next. It's time to settle this. Rin swung his Tachi downward while pouring all of his might into a final single strike, but just as the two felt the battle was coming to an end. Zeroth form, duality. Is that the princess? Accompanied with a voice as beautiful as a bell was a slash tearing through the sky, its color so black it threatened to eclipse the moon. It effortlessly stopped Rin's weapon from reaching its target. But that wasn't all. What? With a high-pitched metallic sound, Rin's beloved Tachi was sundered cleanly in two. Oh shit. Princess! Kurogane was also taken aback by this new arrival. I heard what was happening from both our scouts. You could have invited me to join the fun instead of keeping it all to yourself. The words, as she chided Kurogane, indicated dissatisfaction, but the music of her tone betrayed her excitement. Rin made to see who this mysterious figure was. Oh. She looks a bit like the Grandmaster. Doesn't she? It's probably not her, maybe, but from the, I don't think it's her, but from the, that art I keep talking about from the thumbnail and whatnot, it's a similar form with the hair and stuff. But basically what I'm saying is she's beautiful, and I want her to be the protagonist of the next game. And she would totally date me in real life. And the sight of her alone took his breath away. She was young, wearing a fortified suit that looked to be a marriage of classical and modern Eastern styles, with long silver hair that almost appeared to glow in the pale moonlight. Her age was likely close to Rin's, perhaps a little younger, with well-defined features that still held traces of adolescence, pairing strikingly in contrast to the empty void behind her eyes. She's emotionally damaged. That's just my type. There was the air of a young noblewoman who had been sheltered from impurities all her life, and the stench of a baleful warrior who had bathed in the blood of countless lives. How she was both and neither at once, Rin could not understand. But it was this very quality that made her all the more captivating and dangerous. Hands off, Rin, she's mine! In the woman's left hand was a large black engraved blade that threatened to freeze him for daring a glance at it. No doubt it was what halved Rin's Tachi moments ago. She's left-handed. Also cool. Oh wait, she's dual-wielding, I guess. What did... Rin fumbled for the words as he clutched the useless handle tightly in his hand. The fair-haired woman only smiled as she looked down upon him. Your weapon was very fine, but it was never any match for my friend, I'm afraid. She spun the black blade in her hands around gently before holding it upward the night sky to seemingly display it with pride. Toward the night sky. It wasn't hard to see why she would boast about possessing such a weapon. It does look pretty cool. He had seen many a blade of historical significance, but instinct told him that hers was better than any of those. The blunt side featured an intricate design of deep grey that, while he could not discern its meaning there and then, he knew was nothing less than a work of art. There was an aura about it, one cold as ice, that seemed to reject its worldly surroundings, making it capable of cutting through anything it so desired. It came in company with a beautiful hilt of deep red that contrasted its body without feeling out of place. I guess actually maybe she's not dual wielding and the other thing is the hilt. Hard to say, really. This juxtaposition was, in a sense, much a reflection of its wielder, with their two opposing natures being distinctive, yet also as one. Reen thought as he observed, her blade was clearly something special, but that alone did not explain the strength behind her attack. He had never heard of the technique she used, but it was certainly connected with the 8 leaves in some way, and the skill she showed in executing it made her equal to a divine blade. Better than Reen, for sure. He was so fixated as these thoughts rushed through his mind that he was also brought out by her sudden laughter. I didn't think I'd ever meet you here. I wonder if our old master is behind guiding us to the same place. Or if it's just a happy coincidence. Wait. The manner in which she spoke and her familiarity with Reen gave him a theory. That technique you just used was really something. Wait, did she say that? Consider me intrigued. It's put you a league above more interesting than our senior practitioners. So he was right. Are you? But before he could hear what he already knew, she turned away. She turned away, refusing to let him finish the question. He isn't here, so why don't you run on back to your family? Go and make the most of your vacation. Just don't let your skill with the blade slip. The world will need it again one day. He spoke with a certain satisfaction as she pointed down to the other half of his broken blade, and then she leaped high, seemingly disappearing on the other side of the moon. Oh. Reen could only stare, dumbfounded as she vanished. He couldn't even speak. Burugane left with her. The Ikaruga, the Black God, One Blade School, and our senior practitioners. Reen had been unable to fulfill his objective, and not just that, he was left with countless new questions about the people he encountered and the mountain itself. He felt there was meaning behind being guided to this specific place, but how important it was, or what it entailed, he did not know. And yet, the person responsible for discerning that won't be me. Looking down at his broken tachi, he was struck anew with how massive the world truly was. And he realized that, now that his master was confirmed to be elsewhere, the purpose of his visit to Longlai was nothing more than to enjoy a wonderful ordinary vacation with his family. Quick to trust the word of somebody who just broke his sword. This meeting here was but a peculiar coincidence. For now, at least. When I get back, I'll need to reforge my tachi and myself. Something stirred in this region, all across Calvard, but there was nothing he could do about that as he was. All he could focus on was training and bettering himself so he could one day play a part against the next threat that loomed over the distant horizon. New resolve welling in his soul, he made his way through the now still mountain trail back to where his loving family awaited. Well. This lady seems really cool. And that unlocked a third one. Forward, sword in hand. Maybe that one's gonna be about her. September, year 1207, so 1 year earlier, of the Septian calendar. I cannot accept. I was not one to mince words. The hulking bear of a veteran, Bracer, Zin Vathek. Was that always his last name? Probably. Could not hide his disappointment, puffing out his bottom lip with a sigh as he stood before me. Not again. You got to resign yourself to the inevitable one of these days. I had been indebted to this man, who was as capable as he was kind, since my first days in the guild. Truly, I did not wish to be a source of vexation for him, but a wish alone was not enough. I have neither the experience nor skill to be worthy of an A rank, so I cannot accept your recommendation. Or was that her saying that? Bracers are assigned ranks based on their strength and achievements, with A rank being the highest, on paper at least. Its members are the very face of its beloved organization, and as such, ranks are a metaphorical badge of honor to be worn with pride. So how had I received multiple recommendations for the most prestigious rank in 6 months? Oh. I spared no effort in working to hone my craft in the years I joined after school, and certainly I wouldn't classify myself as a doe-eyed newcomer, but to have my name among the greatest of the guild? Absolutely not. But after turning down my first recommendation, a second one had come from the guild's headquarters in Lemon. If you ask me, you got both in spades. There's something else making you lead toward a note. Jin's awkward smile told me he had been pressured by headquarters to persuade me. I folded my arms. Setting aside whether you're overestimating me or not, which I believe you are, I would very much like to not stand out any more than I already do. I've been getting offers to be a model, to star in films. Geez, look at this overachiever. It's been, frankly, exhausting forcing them to give up. Now, what do you think would happen if I were to accept a promotion? I'll be neck-deep in the same mess all over again. Okay, that makes sense, but sorry, you're a 1-2 punch in the beauty and bronze department, trying to lay low as a lost cause. Take it from Ren. Laying low might not work out. With the kind of fans you're getting, maybe you could consider the silver screen after all. Who knows? You might walk away with an award from the film festival. Sin's laugh was hearty in contrast to my unamused frown, which I respected him, much as I respected him, he could do with showing a little more decorum. That's not funny. I understand being in the public eye to some extent is inevitable, and I've accepted it, but I'm a bracer, not an entertainer. I wasn't trying to be funny, though. You gotta find a way to let off some steam, or you're gonna break when you need to put together the most. When we need you put together the most. Happens to the workaholics like you more often than you think. I didn't think I was pushing myself as much as he implied, but I also couldn't deny there was a nugget of truth to what he said. We were getting off topic. Just why is headquarters so desperate for me to become an A-rank bracer? I can't see the logic behind it. Advertisement? Well, you see, starting with what you know, the reparations from Erebonia have beefed up our economy this year, so all kinds of new investments are pouring in from across the continent. Now I'm no economist, but people go where the money is at, and where people go, conflict follows. That's just how it is. I saw where he was going from there, electing to expand upon the rest myself. So now we have disputes between mega corporations and a stark increase in Jäger activity. These are in addition to the now known growth of private military companies and increased tensions between mafias. You got it. You think it's bad now? It's only gonna get worse from here. That's why Lemon wants to up security here while promoting our rising star, you. They see it as good PR for the guild. They see it as good PR for the guild and a deterrent to any potential threats that are thinking about stepping out of line. Perhaps I was more vaguely aware of their goal in using me than I wanted to admit. This didn't make hearing the answer any more satisfying. If they have you asking me to play my part, then surely they have asked you to play your part already. You've been recommended for S rank, haven't you? If you know of a better deterrent than having an S rank in cupboard, then I'd like to hear it. Zin scritched the back of his head awkwardly upon my statement. I just don't think I'm up there with someone like Cassius Bright. S isn't even an official rank, and even if it was, just look at me. You think a guy like me is a picture-perfect advertisement for the guild? Sure. You're a martial arts guy. That's always good. I think you have the skills, achievements, and build to be one, yes? A curt, quick response. Alright, point made. I can't force you to take this recommendation, and I'm not about to be a hypocrite. Just let me know if you change your mind, okay? With that, the conversation came to an end, and the guild's bracers gathered to begin our routine meeting of delegating open requests. This is how I preferred things. It was better to stay like this. Oh. There was a point when I wanted to be something more. I can no longer remember when that was. Sometime during my childhood it happened, I'm sure. I just recall realizing how small the world truly was. So I prayed on and longed to become someone I was not. It was around high school when I thought I became that someone. Those years were unforgettable. I never forget the unexpected reunion that was had there, nor the priceless treasure I had gained. I truly thought I'd gotten closer to who I wanted to be. But in the end, it was just wishful thinking. My hand, once held, was now empty. And I was still a nobody. But I refused to stand still. I grew unrelenting in following the new path I chose for myself, ignoring my family's objections. My motivations had changed, however. I no longer possessed that girlhood desire of becoming something more. Of becoming someone. I just needed to keep moving, however aimless that movement was. I don't have a good guess as to who this is, actually. Well, aren't we looking gorgeous today? With a whimsical wink, a familiar bartender welcomed me to his establishment. He was a tall, affable man who lived by his own rules and never hesitated to lend a helping hand to others. He reminded me much of the Crossbelt City branch's receptionist from the few times I visited for work. The place was nearly empty today. I sat down on the counter seat farthest from the door as he approached. The usual, sweetheart? I stopped by here after a hard day's work on occasion, and whenever I did, I always ordered coffee and a light snack. This was not a coffee and snacks kind of day. I want something with alcohol, even beer will do. Not at all fazed by the vagueness of my order, he walked away and started preparing my drink. It wasn't long before he returned, and placed an elegant glass in front of me. I think this is a little more you than appeared. It was a beautiful cocktail composed of two colors, a clear blue like that of a priceless sapphire, and a calming jade. No doubt he could tell how disquieted my heart was, and was trying to soothe it in his own way. I thanked him inwardly before daring to broach my other reason for coming. Have you learned anything more about what I asked? Apart from being a skilled bartender, he was also a well-known informant. He was extremely well connected to the guild, the press, and even the criminal underworld, but he was very careful never to overstep his bounds with that last one. Maybe he's the guy that had Dingo. Indeed, I found him to be a valuable source when needed. I wish I could say yes, but not even Dingo has any promising leads. Still, I think you've got your eyes on the right district. It's only a matter of time before they get smoked out. I see. Since the guild's investigation turned up nothing, I was hoping he would better point me in the right direction. But it seemed this was going to be a lot harder than I hoped for. Things will work out. Just pace yourself and keep at it a little bit at a time. That also applies to that cocktail. It's a strong one, so don't drink it all at once. I tilted the glass delicately between my fingers as he stepped away, my mind continuing to wade through the case as I was following. There had been a stark increase in illegal drugs on the market. Not just any drugs either, but ones of the highly addictive dangerous variety. And they weren't willing to share any with me. How dare they? Hey, who effectively ruled over the criminal underworld and Calvert, ordinarily limited their proliferation in the market as a part of their rules. Limiting the number of drugs was, of course, far from the ideal elimination of them, but none could deny that the syndicate's actions had brought some semblance of order to where chaos often reigned supreme. Yet the past few years had seen a worrying number of criminal groups rebelling against these carefully curated rules. One of these groups was surely behind the change in the market. And all of this held a presumed connection to 2 missing people. The guild and police had been tasked with searching for 2 children below the age of 10, a boy and his younger sister. They simply left the house one day and had not been seen since. Evidence suggested they came from a perfectly ordinary family on good terms with one another, so the likelihood of them running away was slim. We mulled over the suspicion that they had been abducted for a ransom early on, but not a single demand was made following their disappearance, so it was quickly ruled out. Despite a healthy amount of manpower that was coming from both sides, neither the guild nor the police had yet to find them. That said, the search so far had not proved entirely fruitless. The last known location was fortunately established, and it was unfortunately a popular site for illicit drug trade. The working theory from there became that the siblings witnessed a transaction and were held captive by the criminal parties involved as a result. If that held true, then the longer it took our parties to find them, the greater the danger their lives were in. If they weren't even killed already. The abductors wouldn't do anything right away. Murder was sure to leave trace evidence behind. But it was only a matter of time before they resorted to that, or trafficking abroad to be rid of them. With each passing second, the odds of the children being returned unharmed were dropping to 0. At the same time, all of this was pure speculation on our part based on a single established location. For all we knew, this had nothing to do with the criminal underworld at all. The potential dangers thrown around made inaction an agonizing task. But if there was no evidence to go on, action was impossible. We could forcibly arrest any suspicious people on sight and make them talk should we wish it. But that would be a direct violation of the Guild's code and its founding principles. The Bracer Guild was always thought to be an ally of the people first and foremost, so resorting to criminal acts to obtain evidence was out of the question. If only the strict adherence to our code didn't stop us from being able to resolve so many crimes, thereby putting the people we swore to protect in danger. Ah, that good old conundrum. It was the ultimate impasse. As I found myself pondering on this impossible dilemma, the Bracers had placed themselves in. A familiar face came to mind. He was a childhood friend with blue-tinged unkempt hair. Though we had lost contact with one another some years before, he one day returned to the city as suddenly as he had left it. Soon after starting up a peculiar profession that skirted the line of legality to a dangerous degree. The kind of profession that could easily involve himself in the affairs of many an unscrupulous individual, or so I believed. Just what did that idiot think he was doing? He walked out of my life without warning, and walked back in so much the same. I'd spent so much time searching for him, I knew our reunion would be an awkward one based on how we parted. But for him to return after all that waiting, all that searching, and dive into some questionable enterprise so different from my own was almost too much to bear. It gave rise to many concerns as a bracer, and many more concerns as a friend. And the one that bothered me the most was, why hadn't he come to see me? Did he have any idea how worried I was about him? How worried I am about him? Irrational building, I took a large gulp of my cocktail, but the alcohol only fanned the flames of anger burning in my heart. They burned brighter and brighter still, becoming a dazzling white that projected countless transient images of the past. Then just as quickly as it had flared, my anger faded in an instant, replacing itself with a very different emotion altogether. Why did you leave me? The words slipped from my mouth without me realizing it, making me feel downright pitiful once they were said. If someone were to see me in this state. You still haven't moved on, I see. A familiar but unexpected voice called out to me, causing me to jump slightly from surprise. I quickly regained my composure. I just have a few choice words I'd like to say. My response feigned calmness as best I could. I couldn't help but think I had more than a few choice words, really, but following up with that would aid my annoyance in a way I would rather not further. I guess she said yeah. Oh, I imagine you have more than a few. Right, of course you would see right through me. The bespectacled man then sat down next to me as though our running into each other was no coincidence. He was another childhood friend of both myself and the one I was mentioning lamenting over, and someone who followed a remarkably different career path from either one of us. If it's still bothering you that much, why not just go and see him? You already have his address by now, surely. How could I, with how much time that's passed? As I mumbled my response meekly, I thought I could hear the man next to me chuckle. Well then, I suppose there's no need to rush things. With your lines of work, I'm sure your paths will cross naturally enough in due time. I didn't expect that kind of response. You make it sound so romantic. Lest you have forgotten, I don't struggle with expressing what's in my heart the way he does. Now, since we are here, how about a toast? I'll make your next one non-alcoholic. And lest you have forgotten, I can handle my liquor just fine, thank you very much. We then spent the rest of our time reminiscing about the past. It had been too long since we were able to just sit and talk like this. It wasn't that he and I had become estranged, but both of our jobs made it a trying task to meet even at the best of times. By the way, I've heard word you turned down. By the way, I've heard word you turned down becoming an A-rank bracer again. Of course, that wouldn't escape the CID's ears. The information itself wasn't confidential, but that he already knew something, however unofficial it was entirely typical of him. The Bracer Guild focused on protecting civilians, while the CID focused solely on the needs of the president in office. The groups were neither enemies nor allies. They simply had very different goals where work was concerned. I know it isn't my place to tell you to accept the offer, however. He paused before resuming, his tone becoming markedly more serious. The times we live in demand a new hero, that much is clear. I had no idea what a realist like him was trying to say by implying I was a hero. But before I could inquire further, he changed to the subject that was likely what brought him to find me in the first place. Now, if you don't mind, I have something that will be of interest to you regarding those missing children. My eyes widened from the unexpected change, he continued. And I'll drink some water. We've identified the group that made that district their turf, as well as have compelling evidence of crimes taking place. You may proceed as you like in cooperation with the police. I couldn't believe it. On a fine silver platter, he had given me just cause to act, and since the information came from the CID, there was no reason to doubt its veracity. I felt it. I was on the verge of rekindling my girlhood desires. All I had done till now was follow life where it was taking me. And yet here I found myself before a new path that could lead to that someone I once wanted to be. This deviation terrified me. What if it led me to losing someone again? What if it ended in more pain? My fear begging me to stay idle. I was a fragile human being at my core, I knew it well. It made me wish I was anything but. It inspired me to take up the sword and rebel against any whispers of weakness, and I played the part admirably on the surface. But if I were forced to face cruel reality in the future, I wondered, would my heart be able to take it? I don't know. Wow. As I sidestepped to the left, I shifted my center of gravity and unleashed a flurry of slashes against my first foe, using that momentum to thrust both myself and my blade toward my second. 2 low-ranking monsters fell to the ground. They were members of a mafia I had been chasing, and right now I was in the thick of their den of operations. My friend gave the guild and police the excuse we needed to take a more direct stance against our targets. His information was vague, however, so we still had to discern their precise location on our own. I, Zin, and several other braces agreed it would be best to split our forces and attack several locations in unison for this part of our mission. Based on what just transpired, it appeared my location was the lucky winner.
There's the intruder! Hey, I've seen her before. She's from the paper.
2 more reinforcements arrived, but I was hardly going to give them time to act.
Sure.
I raced forward, swinging my sword twice as I passed them, and they fell before they could even raise their weapons. I advanced. Mobsters appeared in droves. Presumably, the word of my arrival had already spread.
There she is! Use that racer word's been going around about. Well damn, what if they movables here too?
Don't be chicken shit, it's one woman, we can take care of her. They then charged me in a mass, at least 10 of them, with more reinforcements on their way from farther inside the building. Forcing my way through with how many they had in their number was risky. I knew the sensible thing to do would be to wait for the other braces to show up. But I also had to consider, what if my waiting afforded the Mafia time to wheel the children as hostages? Weighing the 2 options, I concluded that whatever reduced the chances of that happening was worth the cost. I needed to push on and settle this now. Besides, I believed I had nothing to fear from this pitiful group as they were. Were they seasoned combat veterans, they could have used their numerical advantage to implement complex formations and corner me, but they did no such thing, the amateurs. And they dared to believe they had held a candle to Heiyu's martial arts? In the face of one of my experience, their bloated size was more of a hindrance than a help. They wouldn't be able to utilize even half of their potential against me. I first had to position myself and then end them appropriately. If I could ensure the gun-toting wielders among them were in each other's line of fire while rounding up the close-range fighters to a single spot, they would soon have bigger worries, friendly fire. Their vulnerabilities would then spell my victory as I cut them down. 1 down, 2 to go. The precious seconds after defeating the foe were the most advantageous. Just as a man had fallen, I was on to another before they had time to adjust to my incoming blade. There was no pattern to who was next by design. I chose my targets with stunning erraticism, throwing them into complete disarray as more collapsed to the ground. What a balance. 3 down, 4. I would go around them in a wide circle. I would move between them, while remaining ever aware of any surprise attacks at my back. I waded through them till I encountered the ones farthest back. These ones never even considered I would be able to reach them, they were spread so carelessly. The men took up their guns with newly alert panic strewn across their faces, but their fate was already sealed. They were powerless as I closed the gap between us. 5, 6, 7. With over half their number down, the remaining monsters were quickly closing their way to counter. Some attacked out of adrenaline-induced desperation, calculating their next moves so poorly that they fell into my long-set trap and accidentally attacked themselves. Oopsie. At this point, the battle was as good as final. All I had to do was continue taking them down till I was the last one standing. There were smaller groups encouraged on my way through the building and countered, but I was able to dispose them with little effort. The path they opened up for me eventually led me to their leader. He was a middle-aged fellow pacing restlessly around an unpleasantly gaudy room until I entered. He twitched in fear upon the very sight of me.
Why are you here? Where are my men?
Kissing the floors. I answered so calmly and concisely that he barked in disbelief.
That's impossible. I sweat my balls off to build this group from the ground up, and you're saying a girl like you tore it all down just like that?
Yeah. But she's not any girl, she's, I don't know her name. I ignored his crude language and drew closer, as I thrust my sword till I sat just between his eyes. It sat just between his eyes. He let out a squeak.
Well, I'm no ordinary
girl. I'm a bracelet. And don't worry, I didn't kill them. They have only been knocked out or restrained. You'll be seeing them again soon, in prison. I shot a darkened glare in his direction as the tip of my sword wandered downward to his neck. Now I have some questions for you, and you will answer them. The man nodded emphatically, his whole body trembling from fear. 2 children, a boy and a girl under 10 years old, disappeared last month. Your people abducted them, didn't they? He nodded. I knew it. Then where are they? What did you do to them?
They're in the room farther inside. They're alive.
At last I could breathe a sigh of relief. My most fundamental objective then, when coming here, could be fulfilled. Next I needed to ask him more about his group. I thought you all seemed far too weak to be charged of this district of the city, but after coming across your account book, everything fell into place. You're working on behalf of someone else, aren't you? He was so unsure of how to respond that he fell completely silent, but that alone gave me my answer. Who is it then? Tell me, is it A?
I can't.
He flinched in fear as I pressed him, resisting as though he genuinely couldn't say. Then just as he opened his trembling lips to speak, I heard a strange thudding sound from outside the room. I stepped away from the man, my sword still firmly in hand. Crunching, squelching, splattering. More sounds, these more audible than the first. I didn't know what to make of them, but they made me feel an instinctive revulsion as they dragged on. Uh-oh. They may have come, accompanied by faint groans, but if they did, they faded just as soon as the sounds themselves. I remained on guard as I stepped out into the hallway, ready to be attacked from any angle at any moment. And the sight that greeted me defied all imagination. The mobsters I fought through minutes before were now nothing more than distorted, mutilated piles of flesh and bone. Not just one or two, every single one of them without exception had been reduced to bloodied mammoths. Some were without hands, others had their organs ripped from their abdomens. Then there were those with their skulls caved in and leaking pulverized brain matter, or the ones with their hearts pulled out and squeezed. Each corpse was different, each corpse was unbearable to look at. The plain hallway I traversed with all due speed was now covered in a sticky, slimy gland.
Who could have done something like this?
Or I guess she's asking that. Who could have done something like this? The sight was so awful that my free hand, now clenched, shook from disgust. When was it ever necessary to go this far? What could anyone have to gain from this? Wait, no. I realized I had just made a very careless mistake. I turned and hurried back into the room I was just in. I was too late.
Of course. Why'd you even fucking do that without restraining him first? Jeez.
The Mafia's leader was floating in the air at the center of the room.
Okay, I thought he was gonna take the hostages, but no.
As though some unknown force was holding him up by his chest. A monster's sword pierced through his chest. A single streak of blood dripped from his unspeaking mouth. There was no room to believe he was anything but dead. Like all the others in the hallway, he didn't even have time to scream before his life was taken. Who are you? I backed at the center of the room, trying to drown out my instinctive fear with anger. At a glance, only the corpse and I were present, but if I strained my eyes, I could also see the faint contours of another distorting the space around them. It must have been some form of active camouflage. I would have thought it a basic courtesy to give your name before...
I would have thought it act of basic courtesy to give your name before asking another's charming ace of the Bracer Guild.
Gonna drink some more water. It was a man's voice that projected true arrogance, as though he were above all others as a matter of course. I instinctively readied myself for battle in response, but my actions seemed not to phase him in the slightest.
No need to be spoiling for a fight. I'm simply here to take out the trash after they were careless enough to leave a trail for the CID to follow.
Was I really talking to a fellow human being? How could he speak of such gruesome murders in those terms?
Are you a business partner of theirs? No, you must be from the group above them.
Wait, no, she said that. Check.
Very good.
He then swung his blade to slide and toss the corpse off to the side with all the respect of a used cigarette. How could you treat people that you worked with like this?
People. Have you your ears? I said nothing about taking out a person, only trash. The same applies to the garbage piling up in the hallway. They have always been so, even before they stopped breathing.
It was clear that communicating with someone of his nature was impossible. I dismissed calm reason for an intense, all-consuming anger so great that my entire body couldn't stop trembling. You monster! Before I knew it, I had sprung into action, pouting every drop of my strength into my blade to launch a swift, unavoidable strike. And yet he avoided it. But he repelled it with one vertical swing of his own. This one exchange was enough to tell me that his strength was a league above mine. He parried my blow at the most perfect instant, cancelling out the force of my attack with so little effort that it barely scratched the surface of what he was capable of. The act of camouflage did nothing to hide the monstrous nature of his cruciform sword either.
Cruciform sword, huh?
Its design combined silver and black in an unholy fusion of darkness and light, as of chaos itself dwelled within its very blade. It was no common weapon. Even if I continued to give it my all, my odds of winning against him were extremely slim.
But not zero.
But at the same time, my instincts were screaming at me that I could not allow him to leave. I charged again, and if attacking him from the front wasn't going to work, then I would have to go for his side. He blocked that attack with just as little effort. But I wasn't done yet. I refused to stop moving, slashing a third time with even more speed than the first two.
Boo-da-da.
I showered him in a flurry of them, each one faster than the last. When I finally reached my physical limit, I darted in a new direction, attacking him from behind. I put my very soul into one overwhelming attack aimed directly at his rear, which I could only just make out through the camouflage's distortion. I got him!
Or did you?
However, the second I became sure that victory was within my grasp, his cruciform blade carved a great arc through the air in a ferocious spinning slash. How familiar. I was able to instantly defend myself against the blow, but the force of it sent me flying backward. I was fortunate enough to not have sustained a direct hit, but my body shook from now being able to fully cancel out its massive weight. Still, I forced myself back to my feet and glared at his fall. The difference between us was night and day. It felt as though he could manipulate the very flow of battle, much like a master of martial arts who understood the very nature of all things. He paid no mind to my pitiful attempt at bravado and gave a short laugh before speaking.
Impressive. You put up more of a fight than the rumors had led me to believe.
What's your goal? What are you trying to do with all your strength? I expected him to reject or ignore me, so I was taken aback when he paused for a sincere moment of thought before answering.
An interesting question. I suppose to instill fear.
Fear? I almost doubted my ears.
Fear is at the heart of all we know. Domination and servitude. Order, harmony, and protection. All of it exists because of fear. That is why I seek to instill fear in its purest form, much like the retributive tower that appeared in Crossbell half a year ago.
Okay.
Such a pity that it fell.
There was such pleasure in his words that it made it easy to imagine the expression on his veiled face. And as insane as what he was saying sounded to me, I knew he meant every word of it. You really are a monster.
Continue your fruitless attempts to stop me, and you'll understand what I mean in due time.
He lowered his blade.
As a parting gift for assisting me in my house cleaning efforts, I will let you and those children go.
Okay. At least the main mission is intact, right?
Keep that far too pristine blade sharp for our next meeting, Racer.
With that, he turned to leave. Wait! Just as I extended my blade to the ground below him, extended my hand, the ground below him emitted a bright glow, and by the time that glow had faded, he was gone. He had likely used the same teleportation spell that certain other criminal organizations were known to rely on. His departure also released all the strength I had left in me. Not from relief, but from the exact opposite. I was so overwhelmed with frustration that I let him leave, so afraid of what he might go on to do because I couldn't stop him, that I lost the strength to even stand. Of course, this is just who I've always been. I haven't changed one bit since the day you left me.
Oh no, the self-doubt is creeping back in.
I'm still the same powerless girl I was back then.
But you still saved those kids in a way.
My work here wasn't finished yet. I walked to the next room. I opened the door and was greeted by what appeared to be an old storage space. There, across the hall, I found two who I was searching for. The brother and sister pair were crouched against the wall, the boy trembling on the floor as his sister stood close by. It's okay, I'm here to help you. I kept my tone as gentle and reassuring as I was able. The girl smiled while her older brother continued to hide his face. I slowly walked toward them, careful not to make any sudden movements, but as I did, the boy shook his head vigorously. His whole body trembled more the closer I got, as though he were telling me to stay away. The answer from that man flashed in my mind. Fear is at the heart of all we need. Those poor children were very much in fear's clutches. No matter how gradual I was in closing the distance between myself and the boy, trying my best not to provoke him, his body language showed he continued to reject me. We were now within arm's length of one another. His shaking grew more violent, and though he opened his mouth to speak, his voice refused to come out. It's all right. I smiled a most comforting smile. After that, I reached out behind me and grasped the blade of the knife that was being thrust toward me. I turned swiftly, my fingers never letting go, and found the one gripping the hilt to be none other than the sister. She had tiptoed around my back while I was kneeling to meet her brother and tried to stab me from behind. She was a bit startled by me halting her attack, but otherwise she stared blankly forward, emotion on her face nowhere to be seen. I suppose he was right about her fear. It controls everything we do. You must have been through something terrifying if it made you resort to this. No doubt they were now conditioned by fear to attack anyone who came to their rescue. I paid no mind to the blood from my bare hand slowly dripping to the floor. The cut from the knife was nothing compared to everything else in the moment. What a hero. My first priority instead was to reassure the girl that I meant no harm. But we humans are capable of more than giving in to that fear. We can fight it. With courage, we can fight it. Your brother was doing just that now. He may have been gripped by fear, but he still fought his hardest through his actions to alert me of the danger his sister posed. Even if it took all he had, he wanted to keep me safe and to keep her from committing an irreversible, regrettable act. It was thanks to him that I noticed what she was trying to do. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm a bracer. Keep you safe. I took the girl into my arms. You're a bracer? Even her voice was devoid of emotion. That's right, I'm here to help you. Oh, I think I've seen you in a magazine before. Something Blade, I think. That's right. The nickname is a little embarrassing, but I'd be happy if you remembered it. That way, as long as you hear it, you'll know I'm here to keep you out of harm's way. I tightened my grip around her as if to stop anything more from hurting her, and surrounded her heart with my warmth. It really will be okay, I promise. I noticed her eyes twitch just slightly, and before long her eyes filled with tears. Soon she began to sniffle, at first a small one here and there, till they gradually grew more pronounced, eventually turning into uncontrollable sob. She had finally been liberated from her fear.
She was quick to turn that fear conundrum that the guy proposed around. Good work.
As for me, I had stayed my course. I was too afraid to deviate from my current path. Still, I had chosen this path with pride in my heart.
New music.
I didn't think it right to turn my back on it now, but I wasn't going to let it be an aimless journey from now on either. And so, it was another day in the Edith branch of Calvert's Guild. It sounds like that Mafia was trying to copy what that other organization of assassins managed to pull off. I was discussing the recent case with Zin. The siblings had indeed been abducted because they witnessed an illegal transaction. The Mafia involved then thought to mimic a group of assassins known for raising children with the intent of turning them into professional killers.
Never heard of an organization like that before.
Their attempts thankfully proved as unsuccessful as their attempts to remain covert in selling drugs. The CID found them, and whoever they were working for purged them. Hell of a way to go. If I hadn't been so incompetent, maybe they wouldn't have been purged at all.
Don't beat yourself up about that. The group guild's priority is to keep civilians safe, not criminals. I don't want to say they deserved it for getting involved in organized crime, but it is what it is. Try putting that frustration you're feeling into more personal growth instead of letting it eat you alive.
I was told that while the siblings were going to need psychological counseling for some time, they were fully expected to recover and go back to their everyday lives. My meeting with them had triggered something inside of me. I came to realize that something needed to change. I had to take some kind of step forward. Even if it ended in me falling to the floor in some dramatic fashion, I just needed to pick myself back up. With that in mind, I accepted my multiple recommendations. The times we live in demand a new hero. Doing so made me think of what my childhood friend said to me. I didn't believe I had what it took to be a hero. But if I could be even just a brief one able to give the people hope and banish the darkness ahead, then that was reason enough to keep going. Maybe that could make me somebody worthy, somebody enough to fight alongside the real hero once they come to light. Well, shall we get down to business?
Zin turned to face me, his classic broad grin even broader than usual. It'll be a while longer before the official paperwork arrives from headquarters, but I'm sure they won't mind me speeding up this part of the process with how much they wanted this. The Republic now has a bracer who reached A rank at the same age as the Empire's Purple Lightning. Congrats on your promotion, Elaine Auclair. Beauty's Blade. Well, that sure is kind of an embarrassing name to call yourself, at least. Elaine Auclair, I've definitely heard that name. Or at least Auclair I've heard. Oh, she isn't called that? She's the sword main. Okay. I guess he just called her that. That's... okay, sure, why not? Oh, that's a translation. I see.
Forward, sword in hand.
Okay. Well. That's all of them, right? Add like second chapters to these if I click on those again. I did it. Hey, there she is again. She sure showed up a lot in this game. Suspension of causality, recording engine activity confirmed. Forced connection to astral link severed. There's one more thing I need to do, though. The whirlpool of causality engulfing Erebus and the fated land has at last been unraveled. Though the bell ringing in the end of days has yet to be silenced. You, children of Zemuria, have earned your moment of peace until the time comes to face the final hour. Until you, with hope and fear in your hearts, must walk new trails. Trails. Maybe. Okay, well, one thing I guess I'll just do as a lark is unseal all of these shits. Because why not? After that, I'm gonna get myself some water, and then we have one very important thing left to do.
Yes, get the ne.
Very important.
Yes, get the ne.
All of that very uninteresting, but here comes the real stuff.
Yes, get the ne.
Sepia faceplate for Sarah. I don't know where in the garden I can change my faceplates, by the way. Okay. No URs the entire time, but now multiple. Tita's work clothes, sure. Another Lion King. And Shining UR, okay. Okay. Why am I so hungry? I didn't eat that long ago. And I ate enough. I must be pregnant. I must be pregante. I must be regant. Holy Bell, new materials, okay. More URs than you can ever count. Another true gladiator belt. That's not a UR though. Dazzling Diablos, nice. Dazzling Vulcan, also nice. Not that I need those anymore, but I guess it's still nice. I really still think it's lame that they reduced the crit rate on the Panzer goggles. What are these good for, if not for crit? Traced you are. And one final pull. This is gonna be a new Sarah outfit. Yep. Dear, your area, dust, you are pure still blue, eh? Sick. I guess I need to equip at least some of that good shit that I just got. You've got a pure still blue already. Oh geez, this party setup isn't right. Lloyd, what the fuck? I didn't know you. Emma. And Risha. You're still blue. Must be pure. Bam. And your gladiator bells must also be true. Ah, not that bad. Belt. Damn, I got two. Two unused gladiator belts? This is just as good. Whatever. Whatever. Okay, so. I'm gonna get some water. Maybe I'll eat a little bit of chocolate or something to stave off the hunger. And then we'll do something very important. So. Be back in a few, but not 20. That's not gonna take that long. How about like 5 minutes? Kirby. Where are we going? What's the important thing? It's the beach! I have a billion tickets. And I have a couple more dates to go on. And that's very important. So, whom do we still want to go with? I guess Yuna, Laura, Emma. Mostly just those. If I could know that if I choose V, it won't be weird, then I'd also go with V and Artina, I guess. And maybe Toa. But I feel like it would get weird. So I don't want to. So we're just gonna do the ones where I feel okay being a weirdo. Because they have boobs. That's my qualifying factor. And we're gonna start with... I think I want to end with Laura, because out of the remaining ones, she's my favorite, probably. So, let's just start with Yuna. Oh no, this conundrum. How could this happen? Hey, isn't this a drink for cupouts? I could have sworn we each ordered our own. I can't believe she did it again. I get the feeling this is Michette's way of trying to get to set the mood. Why? She doesn't think we're dating, right? That little pot stirrer should mind her own business. In fact, I'm gonna go over her right now and demand she fix us a new set of... You don't have to do that. Let me just go buy us some new ones instead. Don't, instructor. Why? What's wrong? Casting him rare kinda misses the point. I can deal with this. It's not like we're making out or anything. Unless you're trying to fix it because it bothers you, does it? No, not one bit. If you're fine with it, then I'm fine with it too. Dreams. It's kind of awkward drinking this thing together once you start going through with it. Yeah, I get what you mean. Say, you know. I can already look around. It's always awkward. It's only awkward because we're making it that way. We don't have to be self-conscious. We can talk like we always do. Sure, I'm down for anything. Just like always. Hey, there's the banana boat in the back. Is that always there?
リーン教官、変なところ見たりしてないですよね。
What? No.
ちょっとそれ堂々と言うのはどうかと。
Look, I didn't know, like, how am I supposed to know which...
教官、久々のミシュラム、ゆっくり休めてますか？
Sure.
クロスベル人としてそう言ってもらえると嬉しいです。ちょっと肌寒いですけど、今日はいい天気になってよかったですね。でもちょっと心配ですね。日焼けしちゃいそうで。
No, you're not gonna have a sunburn. What am I saying yes or no to? Can I look at something instead? No?
え？
Okay.
健康的でいいですか？
Sure.
そういう恥ずかしいこと、今言うのやめてくださいよ。リーン教官、もうちょっと近くに寄っていいですか？
Kia. Wait. Do I say yes, I mind, or do I say no, I don't mind? This is too ambiguous. Okay.
ありがとうございます。で、カップルドリンクを飲むためで他に意味はないですから。リーン教官、この水着なんですけど、私的にはちょっと攻めすぎかなって思ってるんですけど、似合ってますか？私。
Totally.
でもジロジロ見るのはダメですよ。
I would never.
よし、覚悟が決まりました。
To finally kill Reen? Good stuff.
リーン教官、カップルドリンク今から一緒に飲みませんか？
What? I thought it's gone.
リーン教官、できればそのまま動かないでくださいね。よし、行きますよ。
OMG.
ちょっとリーン教
You said not to
官、どこ
move.
見てるんですか？
Not
今
not to
ドリ
look.
ンクを飲むことに集中してください。
Let's see a drink.
何ですか、リーン教官。
Can I look at the banana boat, by the way? Wait, it's gone. Or I guess her head is in front of it.
なかなか飲み干すの大変ですね。
Maybe we need a third.
懲りない人ですね。もう本当に今だけですからね。
In Japanese, she just said, you know, there's only for, you know, I'm only okay with this for
あ
now.
まり見つめないでください。
A little bit of a loose
私の
translation,
顔はいいで
but I
す
guess
か
it kind
ら
of works.
ちゃんとしっかり吸ってください。もうあんまり見つめないでください。私の顔はいいですからちゃんとしっかり吸ってください。
In Japanese, she says, you know, she admits to being cute, I guess. So that confidence is nice, I guess. You know, good that she knows.
大変ですね。
Is there anything else to see? No? What? Guess we're going back to the
そ
boobs.
のリン教官、
What?
私のドキドキもしかして聞こえちゃってますか？
I'll have to check. So... No? Yeah, I don't know. Damn it!
なんでこんなに鈍いんだろう、この人。
What do you... Like, how am I supposed to know which one's better here?
ささっと飲み干しちゃいましょう。
Like, do I say no so she's not embarrassed, or do I say yes for whatever fucking reason?
Phew, I came here hoping to relax, but it ended up putting my brain into overdrive instead.
I know, I didn't help on that front. I know I didn't help on that front. Sorry about that.
Nah, it's all good. I still had fun, so I'd say it was worth it.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
でも教官、いくらバカンスだからってちょっと浮かれてるんじゃないですか？
What do you mean? I'm not sure what you're getting.
まあいいですけど、私も捨てたもんじゃないってそう思っておきます。
Well, now is as good a time as any to head back. I'll see you later.
Yeah, it was nice hanging out with you today, you know. See you later. Yippee. We have 25 tickets, jeez. Emma... What's that, it? Yuna, Laura, Emma, what's that? I guess so, yeah. Oh. Hey, that's a new drink.
So this is the drink with the little tapioca balls. They pack so many of them inside, it's more like a food than a drink. Just look at them all.
Got your interest piqued, huh?
Kind of. It's more grandmother's taken an interest in them since they're one of the latest fads. when I said I was coming here, she said to order some and tell her if it lived up to what all those youngsters were saying.
Huh, I can absolutely picture her yelling, telling you that. Better not to let it get warm before you have to sip to your reports. Have a sip so your report is as accurate as possible. I can't read.
Oh no, can't let her down. That's it, I'm not just here for her. I'm also here to have fun with Irene. What do you say to staying here and talking for a bit?
I'd never say no to that. What's on your mind? We're not even at the table anymore.
リンさんは学生時代に戻りたいと思うことはありますか？
Personally, I would say no, but the correct answer is probably yes. Yeah.
辛いこともありましたけど、楽しい思い出もたくさんありますから、一番の思い出はやっぱり学生寮でリンさんと。いえ、なんでもありません。
Jeez.
巡回魔女として各地を旅して回っていますが、たまに見かける素敵な風景に心動かされることも多いんです。リンさんも旅はお好きですか？
Totally.
私と一緒にしたいですか？
What? Yeah, I totally said that.
その私もです。リンさん。リンさんに見せたい景色たくさん見つけてきたんです。少し肌がヒリヒリしてきました。そろそろ日焼け止めを塗り直した方がいいでしょうか？
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes. I'll help you with that.
リンさんが塗ってくれるんですか？恥ずかしいけど嬉しいような。はい、いいえ。それではお願いします。
Score. Where's the scene? I need this fully animated. I need to get a full VR headset and I need to have rumble feedback so that it feels like, what did you say? Surely it can't be yes again. Ha!
分かっています。でも限られた時間だからこそこの一瞬が大切に思えるんでしょうね。
That's exactly why I said no.
この水着、おばあちゃんと相談して選んでみたんですが、白のビキニタイプなんてちょっと目立ちますよね。
It makes you stick out like a beautiful finger. I don't know.
似合っていますか？よかった。でも改めて見られると少しだけ恥ずかしいですね。
Oh, I've been looking.
なるほど。普通のミルクティーとは違う楽しみ方があって面白いですね。
How did we suddenly end up back there?
その
That topic.
リンさんさえ良ければ、このタピオカミルクティーとの記念写真を一緒に撮ってもらえませんか？
Sure.
おばあちゃんから映え写真を忘れるなと念を押されているので。私の気のせいならいいんですけど、変なところを見てます。
I just have to make sure the sunscreen is applied properly, you know? Can't look at the drink, huh?
すみません、リンさん。付き合わせて。
It's always a pleasure.
私、何か変なところでもありますか？そんなにまじまじと見られると恥ずかしいです。
I first responded to the English question. But in Japanese, she actually
やっ
asks
ぱり
like
見てるじゃないですか。
almost the opposite, so I had to change into a
そ
no.
ういうのはその
Oh, so if we weren't in public, then
とにかく
so let's go.
じろじろ見るのはダメですからね。
Say Jesus.
この角度で大丈夫かな。
This angle? Yes.
やっぱり見てるじゃないですか。そういうのはそのあんまり良くないと言いますか。とにかくじろじろ見るのはダメですからね。
Japanese phrasing makes it less. Like, I don't know, saying that it's rude makes it sound like she actually doesn't want you to, but in Japanese it's less like that.
何か変なところでもありますか。そんなにまじまじと見られると恥ずかしいです。なんとか取れました。すみません、リンさん。
I still don't know what triggers these events ending.
その、よければですけど、
Uh-huh.
この写真を手帳に入れて持ち歩いてもいいですか。
Would I be against that? Am I okay with it? Yes.
ありがとうございます。これで
Why didn't I get the good sound for that
楽し
one?
みが増えました。
Why didn't I get the good sound on that one? Was I supposed to look at her boobs again or something instead? Damn it, I messed it up. Everything's bad now.
It's a bit surreal to have a physical memento of our time today.
At least it turned out great.
That it did. I'm sure grandmother will be so pleased when she sees it. Thank you so much for indulging us, Reen. It means a lot to me.
Oh, it's no big deal. I had fun doing the indulging, so ask again anytime. And give Roselia my regards.
伝えておきますね。でも、この写真は自分だけのものにしておきたいかな。
Emma, something on your mind?
何でもありません。リンさん、また何かあれば言ってくださいね。
Anyway, as much as I'd really love to stay and keep talking, I think I should get going. Alright, see you later, Reen. Take care.
Thanks, you too, Emma. Yippee. I was thinking that if you get enough goods, you get one of those flowers like I did with Alyssa. But I guess that's not why that happened. So maybe it's just, you know, maybe Alyssa was just the one because we had her as our girlfriend in the save file and selection and whatnot. Now, the last one. The final act in this game. The true ending. Oh, this one again.
This wasn't what I was expecting. You did order 2 separate drinks, didn't you? And why are there 2 straws wrapped around one another?
I can't believe she did it again. So the straws are like that, so we can drink out of the glass at the same time. It's a drink for couples trying to be cute, basically.
What? Then why would they serve it to us?
Don't look at me, I'm just telling you what it is. You know those family-style meals in some places where everyone shares? It's like that, but for 2 and in drink form.
I see nothing familiar enough about this that would make me feel it appropriate to enjoy in public. Clearly, there's still many customs throughout the continent I have yet to learn.
There are still others.
Well, we are rather close. I suppose there's no reason why we can't share a drink together.
Are you sure? I don't want you doing anything that makes you uncomfortable, Laura. I can always go and ask Michelle to serve us.
No, this is perfectly alright, I insist. The way I see it, this is another way of training to help control my nerves as a warrior. It's just as well that I experienced this in good company. There isn't anyone else who would make me as comfortable about trying this.
That's a hell of a compliment. You know what? Yeah, let's make the best of this time together. I'm sure it'll work out just fine.
Agreed.
いえば今日は手作り弁当を作ってきたのだ。
Oh.
そのよかったらそなたにも味見してもらいたいのだが。
Of course.
うん、期待しているがよい。ずいぶん研鑽を積んできたからな。いつでも嫁に行けると父やクラウスもなんでもない。
You already found your way to my
水辺という
heart.
のはやはり落ち着くな。レグラムの湖を思い出すようだ。こういう賑やかさもいいが、あの静けさと幻想的な趣が懐かしくなるな。
Hmm. Yeah, sure, that's cool.
そなたと月と霧と古城を楽しみながら杯を交わすというのもおつであろうな。さっきから何やらチラチラと見ているようだ
I
が、
would never.
そんなに私の水着姿が気になるのか？
Yes. Damn it!
うん。正直なのはいいが、もう少し
Ah!
男子たる慎みを持つべきだな。
My life is ruined.
そうだリー。少しばかり体を見せてもらっても構わぬか？
Yes, certainly. Check them out. Check out these guns.
うん。なかなかの引き締まり方だな。鍛錬は怠っておらぬようで何よりだ。すまぬ。その少々はしたなかったな。
You have permission to my body.
思えばそなたとは何度も稽古をしてきたものだが、こうしてひたすら二人でゆっくりするのもいいものだな。
Sure.
そなたも同じ気持ちか？もう少し近くに寄ってくれてもいいのだぞ。
Closer?
うん。覚悟は定まった。カップルドリンクとやら、今こそ乗り越えようではないか。
Yeah. The final challenge.
ちょっと顔が。
Look, it's not even me. The game starts me out like this.
ママよ。こうなったら一気に片付けるとしよう。
Boop.
そんなにまじまじと見るでない。ほ
I
ら
don't have a choice.
今はドリンクに集中するがよい。
My focus is everywhere. As a blade master, I can. Hey, hey, hey! There we go. Why are the boobs so hard to capture?
リーン、そなた。
I perceive everything at the same time. I'm a blade master. I can do that.
頼むから真面目にやってくれ。私はこれでも真剣なのだからな。
So am I. See? I perceive this too.
恥ずかしさはともかく、意外と美味しいものだな。
Not as delicious as you.
リーン、そなたな。
What?
まったく、やっぱりリーンもどこまで行ってもおのこということか。だからリーン、もう好きにするがよい。
We have permission.
とにかくとっとと片付けるぞ。
Time to look at everything respectfully, but also with horniness.
リーン、そんな
You just gave me permission.
まったく、やっぱりリーンもどこまで行っても
Respect and horniness are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are inclusive. Like one doesn't exist without the other. Maybe, in my case, because I'm special and cool
恥
like
ずかし
that.
さはともかく、意外と美味しいものだな。そのリーン、そろそろ私は限界なのだが、もし
Me
よ
too.
ければ
I thought so.
飲
I've
み干す
also
ま
hit
で
my
は
limit.
お互い目をつむっていることにはせぬか。
What? No.
まあそうだな。せっかくの機会なのにもったいなくはあるか。
Exactly.
それにそなたと一緒ならこういうのも 悪くはないかもしれない。
Yeah. She's the real heartthrob here, not Reen.
Who knew a mere cocktail would be such a formidable test of willpower? I fear I've shown you an unsightly side of me.
No, it was very sightly. Extremely sightly. I didn't think that at all. Personally, I thought it was fun seeing you in a different light.
それは私のセリフでもあろう。一応言っておくが、本来あのような姿は見せたくないのだからな。そなたの前以外では。
Kia!
Wow, Lara. You sure got me good with that one. I don't even know what to say.
そうか。よくわからぬが。まあよい。
Well, I'd best be going. See you later, Reen.
Yeah, see you around, Lara. See you all the time, in my dreams. We did it! We have completed the game now. Let's leave so we don't have to look at Reen anymore. So we can fully close this out. By the way, wait, no. Gotta get that mission. It's important. Bada boom. I never used these the stat drops. Jesus Christ. What? It's fine. We beat the game. It's fine. What was the name of the sword maiden again? Where, where do I know her from? Sorry about my failing memory. Yeah, okay, that's right. Am I? Has the name Eau Claire not come up? I could swear the name has come up somewhere. Well, maybe I am tripping. Let me join this party. Maybe. That could be. But I suppose this is where our adventure with Trails into Reverie truly ends. So, yeah. For real this time, I'm gonna thank you for watching, hanging out, and, you know, finishing the most important part of the game with me. And seeing a nice look into the future. At least I'm assuming that's kind of what that was. Introducing some characters and concepts and stuff. And I guess I won't do another stream today. This one ended up being kind of long, and all the reading was a little hard on the throat. But I guess then I will be back tomorrow. The next Trails won't be tomorrow, but I think I already own it. Right? Daybreak is the next one, right? Daybreak. Yes, I own that one. So it could happen at any time. But I have so many games to play. So I don't know when. But the next game, which I will probably start tomorrow, should be Mina the Hollower. A game that I, you know, actually backed on Kickstarter. So I actually have had my copy of the game since, I think, one day before the launch or something. But, you know, for a bit. And now I'll finally play it next time. So join me then, it'll probably be really good. And join me any other time. Especially also for the next trailers, whenever that may be. So, yeah, until then, I say otsukare-sama. Bye-bye.